Yeah, I remember when the CDC first mandated that you didn't have to pay your rent anymore. Even I was surprised. I'm like, can they do that? But there's been this like insane administrative overreach with COVID. It seems just like a blank check.
Yeah, no, I mean this is sort of a general concern that we've had since the beginning is the use of these emergency powers. And one of the problems that you tend to see is once government has used a power once in an emergency, it's not prone to go ahead and let that power go. So, I mean, the perfect example is rent control in New York City. So, rent control in New York actually began during World War II as part of a national rent control act. When that expired, the state of New York then went ahead and passed a new rent control statute, which I think it lasted 2 or 4 years. They renewed it again, renewed it during the Korean War, again citing back to World War II. Fast forward in 2019 in December, the state of New York repassed a rent control statute which expanded the rent control in place, hearkening back to the original cause of the crisis, World War II. So, government knows how to milk a crisis and to keep a power that it's accreted to itself and to continue using it. So when the whole pandemic began, you saw that this this is just temporary use of power, But in the law, oftentimes these temporary uses of power, those become precedents to expand and enlarge government power into even further reaches of our lives. If you take a look, whether it's the eviction moratorium by the CDC or the OSHA mandate with regard to vaccines, in both cases, there's just really almost no limiting principle. I mean, the idea here is if the federal government can use the CDC to tell you how it is that you can control your own property, or OSHA to force employers to either fire, sort of well-trained employees who don't actually pose a risk to the workforce, or face draconian fines, what can't they do?
Yeah. And I found, and I want to very much get into the vaccine mandates because I know you've been intimately involved in pushing back against that. But I have a question because I assume the balance of your work is between the state capitol in Ohio and federal litigation like this. What is your take on governors that have used emergency powers essentially as a blank check? Gavin Newsom just gave himself an extension on his blank check powers. And it seems like a dilemma for constitutional conservatives that we're always harping on the 10th Amendment and let's push power back to the states. I mean, at least there are places like Florida that have a different approach of that. But do governors have this blank check?
Well, part of that depends on state law. And so one of the things that we've pushed for, if you take a look, first of all, at the challenges in the states that were effective in the courts to the use of governors or health directors' powers, it tended to be where they overstepped the limits of those powers as they were defined by the legislature or by the Constitution. It's sort of interesting. I think oftentimes in the liberty movement, we want to go straight for this violates your rights to property, to contract, to core individual liberties. And oftentimes those sorts of challenges were less successful than challenging you exceeded the duration that you're permitted to do, to act under. You exceeded your authority by intruding into this area.